Well, with more on Biden's visit, we're now joined in studio by Catherine Lévesque, the parliamentary reporter with the National Post, and in Washington, D.C., David Leventhal, editor-in-chief of RawStory. Hello to both of you.
Hello.
Hello.
Catherine, I'll start with you here because, of course, here we have Joe Biden arriving on the same day that really the Capitol is probably more obsessed about the Han Dong story today because, as people now know, he resigned late last night after a global news story essentially alleges that he spoke with a Chinese diplomat and talked about delaying the release of the two Michaels. Talk to us about, which I should say Han Dong denies, but talk to us about the kind of shadow this creates for this Biden visit.
This was the worst possible timing. I mean, you had this bombshell of a story happening, on the eve of a presidential visit. And Mr. Dong, I mean, we saw him last night. He had to resign from the Liberal caucus, and, he's now sitting as an independent MP. He also vows to, to clear his name. So all this is happening. And what we've seen today is that the Prime Minister's office, and believe me, we've been calling them all day, won't give any statement on what happened, on the situation, on them losing one of their MPs, at least for now. And so, what will happen, quite frankly, and I guess we'll see it at the press conference tomorrow, with Mr. Biden is we'll probably have to ask questions to Prime Minister Trudeau about his MP who just left his caucus. So it's the worst timing. I'm sure the Prime Minister's office is not very happy that it happened, just mere hours before Mr. Biden is visiting the Capitol.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Han Dong is essentially caught up in the controversy over foreign interference in the general election in this country, 2019, 2021. Dave, I'll bring you in here because as we talk about foreign meddling in the Canadian democratic process, I'm wondering how large of an issue this figures for the U.S. This happening as Biden arrives, but in a larger sense, the whole security question about China.
China is very much on the mind of U.S. officials, especially on Capitol Hill today. We're having hearings here in Washington, D.C., the U.S. Capitol, about TikTok, the company that's owned by ByteDance, a Chinese company. And in all of the talk today is about, well, hey, is China going to be able to access users' information for this wildly popular app? Is this going to be something where the Chinese government, in a way, is using it as an infiltration tool? I mean, this is the nature of the debate that's happening in Congress on Capitol Hill. So if you want to play that forward a few months, we're going to hear about China in the context of U.S. elections again, whether the Chinese government is trying to use technology, use tools to more or less propagate propaganda or otherwise meddle in U.S. elections. And that's before we even get anywhere close to talking about trade issues or military issues. China looms very, very large here in Washington, D.C.
So, of course, something we're going to be watching out for as this visit continues and goes on. But I also want to talk about the Safe Third Country Agreement, because as you well know, Catherine, huge issue in this country is tens of thousands of migrants have entered Canada through irregular border crossings. And we knew that the Prime Minister wanted to raise it during this visit with Joe Biden. And it seems we can safely say, and then some form of agreement is going to be announced.
Yes, and I would maybe be careful with that, right? Because we don't know if there's an agreement, if there's a skeleton of an agreement. So for sure, what will happen is that this issue is going to be raised tomorrow. Prime Minister Trudeau and President Biden are going to have their bilateral meeting. I think they're going to be talking about the terms of this deal. Now, the only question we have is, are they going to be announcing something as early as tomorrow, or are we going to have to wait a little bit? The other question I would have, because the devil is always in the details, right, is, did Canada give anything in exchange for an agreement? Because we knew that, it's not really top of mind for the Americans right now. I think, the United States is certainly more concerned maybe with the southern border than the northern one. So I'll be watching to see, did we maybe make some concessions and say we'll take care of the Haiti mission, for instance? Did we make any more promises? So that's what I'll be watching for tomorrow.
Okay, interesting that you raise Haiti, because I do want to bring you in on this topic, Dave, because we know ever since Antony Blinken came to Ottawa last year, he was raising this idea that the White House wanted Canada to lead some type of multinational force for Haiti, or multinational mission, I should say. Why is the United States leaning on Canada instead of leading a mission of their own if it's such a priority for the Biden White House?
Yeah, much of that has to do with the United States for itself and not about Canada. I mean, the United States is still reeling from a number of international military engagements, whether that be Afghanistan, Iraq. If you go back in time, we could talk about Somalia, Grenada, various other countries. And there's great fatigue among the U.S. population. And Joe Biden, as president, has made it very clear that he doesn't want to get entangled in foreign affairs in a military sense any more than the United States absolutely has to. There is a Canadian component which is interesting and very few Americans even realize, which is that many of the migrants who are coming through the United States and going to Canada are from Haiti. So the United States feels, at least to some extent, that Canadians have skin in the game, if you will, that they have a responsibility to try to take care of their own affairs, and the United States will help, but doesn't want to be at the forefront of any type of effort where there are going to be boots on the ground, quite literally and physically, in Haiti.
Well, and of course, Canada has a long history with Haiti and a significant Haitian community in this country. But listen, quickly running out of time, we have to talk about economics, of course, because here we are, Canada, the United States, trading more than $2.6 billion worth of goods every single day. So what are you watching out for in terms of an announcement? Certainly there has been some concern about Buy American, but it seems the focus really is now about securing a North American supply line and ensuring that does not ever get interrupted.
So what I'll be watching for is if President Biden, kind of changes his tone, and now that he'll be in Canada, and will maybe say, well, there will be exemptions for Canadians, and well, of course it's Buy North American and not just Buy America. But I doubt that he'll actually tone down what he says. But what I'll also be watching for is critical minerals. I know Canada has enormously big amount of natural resources. We certainly want our critical minerals to be, a component of, whatever strategy is happening in the United States right now. We certainly want to be there and jump on the ship. So that, and it's interesting because Mr. Wilkinson kind of said that there might be an announcement on that. So, I will be certainly looking out for that. And, hopefully there will be an announcement on, our critical minerals in Canada.
Yeah, well, we expect something to happen during this visit. So Dave, what about you? What are you watching out for? Catherine mentions critical minerals, and certainly this works very well, dovetails very well into Joe Biden's whole green economic priorities.
Absolutely, it does. And I think one thing that it's easy to forget about, but there was some turbulence during the Trump administration, and we were talking about timber and lumber and various other things that, in essence, the two countries trade barbs, if you will. And so I think stability is definitely an issue that will come up in some form or fashion during Joe Biden's meeting with the prime minister. And also, too, border issues. COVID for many border communities was absolutely disastrous, both from an economic and from a social perspective. I mean, I grew up in a border community. I was used to very free egress going to Canada and back, and many people who, Americans and Canadians both, when the bridges got shut down during COVID, are saying, look, if there's ever another pandemic, we've got to find a better way and prepare for some sort of a situation again in the future where cross-border travel is going to have to be a lot easier and better handled than it was during the past 3 years.
Okay, well, we've quickly run out of time, a lot to cover, and if people are wondering where Dave is from, look at the buffalo behind his bookcase. So, Catherine Lévesque, David Leventhal, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Go Bills.